Right. Hi, everybody. My name is Kevin. My experience with the Course in Miracles in terms of miracles around the body and health and fitness all actually started after growing up being bullied. I was constantly teased for being overweight and made fun of, and I started to develop body dysmorphia well into my early 20s, where I was always chasing this idea of perfection through the body, totally believing that I was the body and it was my only means of achieving love and receiving love from others. So I was very critical, very just mean to myself, and I would condemn myself and reject my body and reject myself based on how my body looked. And I was on a quest to get in extreme physical shape because what I'd noticed was I've been teased for being overweight, but as I've lost weight, I started to get more positive affection. But this created a little bit of a dilemma for me because my whole world was based on external validation and seeking love through the body, which I wasn't. And so I would continue to hit physical goals, but once I got there, then eventually the compliments would run out, the external validation would run out, and I would start to feel like there was something wrong with me. So I was on this never ending quest to try to get to 5% body fat was the big thing I wanted because I figured that would be the perfect body, and that was about the best that I could get to. But what ended up happening was I was pretty close and I was around 7% body fat, and I'd been dating a woman at the time, and she ended up breaking up with me. And up until this point, I had really been living under the illusion that I was my body and having this really perfect body was the only way I could get love. And when she broke up with me, I realized that something was seriously flawed here because I was pretty close to having what most people would consider a perfect body, and she broke up with me. And suddenly the idea of the body makes me lovable no longer held. Because if I was so lovable with this body, how could she have left me? And what this ended up doing was this set me on a much deeper spiritual path where I found A Course in Miracles and the teaching that you are not a body, you are free, really, really hit home for me because I'd never really considered it all that in depth. And as I began considering it more and more, I realized my old way of thinking couldn't be correct because I was never happy. I was always trying to get external validation. And this blue book I had to be, I knew it was right. And as I considered this teaching that I was not a body, that the body is really just a vehicle, something for me to communicate with, I started to break apart my identity from the body and realize that everything I'd ever told myself about who I am because of my body could not be true if A Course in Miracles was true. And because I fully believed that to be the truth, I started to pay attention to my thoughts and really look at where was I judging myself and judging my body and attacking it as though it was me. And taking the idea that I'm not this body, I am free, I began to look at the body as something that I could appreciate as a tool, as a device that I could communicate through to everyone else and just explore this physical reality, and started to find ways to appreciate it and love it as opposed to condemn it. Because every time one of these negative stories would come up, I would remind myself, I am not a body, so this cannot be true about me. And as I continued to do this, I started to feel more love and more gratitude for my body, appreciating it for what it was, as opposed to something that was my only means of getting love. And a funny thing started to happen is as I did this and realized that I wasn't the body dysmorphia I'd suffered from for years began to disappear because I was no longer looking at the body as something that was wrong with me. It was just a body, plain and simple. And I started to appreciate everything good about it, how it felt, how it moved, all the things it could do for me. And as I started to infuse it with love and bring more love into it, a very interesting thing happened. I'd been chasing 5% body fat for years and I could never get there. But simply by changing my perspective and looking at the body with love as something that wasn't me, but just something that I, as an aspect of God or just a soul, is using, and just purely focusing on it with love, not with any need for an outcome, not with anything
else in mind. I changed nothing about the way I was eating. I changed nothing about the way I was exercising. And within about a month, I finally got to 5% body fat simply because of the fact that I quit caring about it as something that it was me. I just started to love the body. But the real miracle wasn't getting to 5% body fat. The real miracle was the fact that once I began to treat myself not as a body, I took it a step further because I knew I'd been lying to myself about my body for so long, about who I was. Then it made it clear to me that there were so many other things I'd been telling myself that weren't true about me. And then I started to be able to find those as well. So as I started to do that, it was the same process. I could just look at things and say, oh, that's not true of me because I'm an aspect of God. And that, how could that be true of God? And so I started to break down all of the stories, but it all began just by A Course in Miracles teaching me that I am not a body, I am free. So any of the illusions which I was telling myself, the attacks I placed upon myself through the body couldn't be true. And that showed me that so many others couldn't be true either. And as a result of that, I just became healthier than I've ever been. I haven't been sick in years. I'm fitter than I've ever been, and all just with the power of love. So that's my story of how just a change in perspective from one of condemnation to one of love can literally shift the physical health as well as the mental and emotional health along with it.